Hello again. This is our weekly programme examining what's happening inside Syria. I'm James Bays. The Syrian opposition, divided by infighting over the last 14 months, now seems in complete disarray. On the ground, the country's largest city, Aleppo, has seen its biggest protests yet, led by university students. Some believe it could be a turning point, but it comes at a time when those who claim to be leading the uprising from outside Syria, the Syrian National Council, is in absolute chaos. An Arab League initiative this week in Cairo tried but failed to get all the opposition groups to hammer out their differences. Also this week, the much criticised head of the group, Burhan Ghalion, was re-elected. Some activists responded, saying they now had two presidents to depose. Then the influential local coordination committees, the key activist network based inside Syria, threatened to leave the SNC, forcing Ghalion to offer to tender his resignation. Ghalion has indeed himself admitted to the shortcomings of the SNC. Have a listen to this.
The performance of the Syrian National Council has been weak and below the expectations. Therefore, we've decided to start a restructuring process, hoping for better performance and a greater efficiency that enables us to support the revolution and help the affected Syrian citizens.
Radwan Ziadeh, a prominent Washington-based SNC member, has said a new leadership is much needed in order to gain more support for the opposition bloc.
It's and every time that you need to have a new leadership to bring the unity of the SNC and to bring a new face and leadership of the SNC. With that will give you to gain more support within the country. And this is one of the issues now. Everyone is thinking.
Well, joining us now are our panel of guests. In Paris, we have Bassma Kodmani. She's a senior figure in the Syrian National Council. In Cairo, Kamal al-Labwani. He's a Syrian opposition activist who was previously part of the SNC but quit the group earlier this year. And in Norman, Oklahoma in the US, Joshua Landis. He's director of the Center of Middle East Studies at the University of Oklahoma and a writer for Syria Comment, an online newsletter on Syrian politics. Let me start with you, Bassma. The news of this week, we had the re-election of your president. We then had him tendering his resignation. We had fresh infighting going on in opposition ranks. It's all a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Resignation is Mr. Ghalion's choice. I think he has judged that the political situation was better that he steps down. This is not a major issue for the Council. It's obviously something that we need to address very quickly, but it will be addressed by the Executive Bureau. The problems that need to be addressed are those of restructuring and of activation and more efficiency. And when I say that, I think I do mean it's the efficiency that is the problem, not so much the representation within the Council. Representation we will never reach, but efficiency to serve the revolution is really what should be sought today.
Well, that's what you say the problems are. Let's ask Kamal in Cairo what he thinks the problems are. You were in the SNC, you quit the SNC. Tell us why.
I am not sad about what happened in the SNC because it is normal. It is normal if you start from wrong way, from wrong point, you will reach nothing. That's the mean. The SNC, all SNC is failed to represent our people and represent the revolution. Now we face the results of the mistakes which commit about Syrian revolution. They create a kind of council. It is not council, and it is nearly not Syrian because not loyalty to the revolution, not loyalty to the people. I am not so sad. I am not afraid because I feel that my people will create real leaders to lead them to the victory. Now SNC failed and is going to die. I am not so sad.
Just tell us, you said mistakes. Just tell us what those mistakes are in your view, Kamal.
The mistakes depend on the ethics and the criteria which they choose the members. The members is not revolutionaries, haven't any history in politics, haven't any history inside Syria. They bring somebody from outside Syria to represent who live inside Syria. They haven't the spirits of the revolution. They haven't any kind of experience in struggle. And that's why we feel that the leadership is stolen to who is not able to lead, not able to work, not able to be loyal. That's the problem. That's why I still struggle to knock down this SNC, this fake, this lies to my people. The results is speaking, not me. The results is zero. SNC now handicap the revolution. We need this revolution to create a new. We are able to make a new council, new small council, new active council. This is what we need.
OK, Josh Landis in Oklahoma, you heard those strong words. I know you wrote on your own newsletter that the SNC was now in chaos. Give us your assessment of where it stands right now.
Well, you know, Burhan Ghaliun is facing an old problem. This has been Syria's problem from its creation. After the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the borders were rather arbitrary. Lots of different ethnic and religious groups were trapped inside of it, and it's always had a weak sense of national political community. Shukri Quwatli, the first president, went into had a first coup d'etat 3 years after the independence. And that's because he distrusted all the elements around him, the other political parties. His government failed in 1948, and he did not. He refused to form a government of national unity. He didn't distrust the Aleppans. He didn't trust other political parties. Instead, he called emergency rule. He brought Hosni Saim, the chief of staff and the military, on to the streets in order to break heads and to try to shore up his rule. Within 3 months, we had the first coup d'etat, followed by others. And Syria turned into a banana republic. And this, in a sense, is the big challenge that this revolution has to face, because the Assad regime, extremely narrow. It claimed to represent the nation, but of course it relied on traditional loyalties, family, tribe, sect. As we all know, extremely narrow regime. This revolution has the challenge of trying to bind together a nation anew. And unfortunately, Syria has always faced this fragmentation. Kurds, Alawites, 35% ethnic and religious minorities facing Sunnis who are also divided between Aleppo and Damascus and the different regions. So to bring that together is an extraordinary challenge. And,
OK, Josh,
you've given us an age-old problem.
Josh, you've given us the historical context there. Let's examine the Syrian National Council a little bit more. The SNC is a coalition of 7 opposition groups. It's made up of the exiled Muslim Brotherhood, dissidents and intellectuals living abroad, some minorities inside Syria, including Kurds and Christians, in addition to the revolutionary youth. The 300-member council was formed last September in Istanbul. In March, the SNC set up its military bureau to coordinate the various armed anti-government groups, but the main armed group, the Free Syrian Army, rejected the proposal. The SNC has a Secretariat General composed of representatives of the various member groups. They elect a 10-member executive committee and a chairman whose term is renewable every 3 months. Back to you, Josh Landis. That's the makeup of the SNC. How representative is it of Syria?
Well, the problem is, you know, as we were saying, Syria doesn't have leaders with a strong public following. The Assad regime has destroyed civil society. You know, what's likely to happen is that this Syrian National Council has done its heavy lifting. It mobilized the international community. It came up with slogans like peace, Isqat al-Nizam, and that unified the nation around this uprising. And then it got economic sanctions from the West. Its great skill is attracting the West. The center of gravity of the revolution has now shifted from the West to the internal struggle inside Syria, the fight on the streets. And that the SNC cannot play a big role in. We're seeing already that they're going to be leaders that emerge off the battlefield. You look at the great national leaders of the Middle East, whether it's Ataturk, Abdulaziz ibn Saud, Ben Gurion in Israel, or Reza Shah in Iran. All of them fought wars on the ground for over a decade. They emerged as victors because they bound together their people on the battlefield. That's likely to happen in Syria. I think we're going to see a new class of leaders emerging out of this military struggle that's now taking place on the streets of Syria.
Bassma, is that a view you share? Because the word coming out of the US State Department now is that they believe that if or when Assad eventually is toppled, it won't be the SNC who's running the country.
Look, first of all, I just would like to comment on Joshua Landis' the description of Syria. It's obvious that he is not part of what collective memory and sense of identity is in Syria. Syrians feel they are at the heart of the Arab world. They care for all the issues, such as Palestine in particular, and issues around the region, but they definitely have a sense of identity and a collective memory and a sense of common purpose and objective. This revolution has showed that. The population has rallied around the idea and the objective of getting rid of a regime that is seeking actively every day the destruction of the social fabric, the tearing apart of society along sectarian lines for it to survive. Hopefully the regime will fall before it tears apart the society, but there is a risk, of course, if it lasts for longer. Let me just say this. I think what we are seeing today, and again I will say, we at the SNC are not there to say we represent so-and-so. We may represent this or that, or very little or nothing. The criteria here are, what are we able to do for the revolution? The revolution wanted the SNC to carry its message to the world. Come and help us, assist us, come to rescue a population that is in danger. And this is what the SNC carried as a message. Now, the international community has not been ready to come with the right answer because Assad is able to take pressure but knows that he still has support in the international community.
Is that Bassma?
Towards self-defense.
Bassma, is that because you failed in your task, though? Because right now, those international leaders, the G8 meeting in Camp David, NATO leaders are going to be meeting in Chicago. They don't want to support you, or one of the reasons they don't want to support you is because they don't really know who the Syrian opposition is.
Look, I think even if the Syrian opposition was all united and speaking with one voice, asking for international assistance today, the international will, the political will, is unfortunately not there yet. And that has nothing to do with the opposition being divided or inefficient. What it has to do with is an economic crisis. The United States has pulled out from the region, has pulled out from Iraq and wants to pull out from Afghanistan. Is this the responsibility of the opposition? I think we're asking too much of the Syrian opposition here. Is it possible for the Syrian opposition to change the Russians' attitude when the Russians are angry as they are at the United States and the West? These are, I think we need to be a little bit more objective about what we can secure for the Syrian population today. The international support is not coming in the form that we needed. The Free Syrian Army becomes the hero of the people. America. Of course, they are the main protection of the people. And therefore, the strategy had to shift. If there is any will that emerges in the international community, and understanding that there is no other solution but to come to the help of the people, and it's not either FSA, Free Syrian Army, or international assistance, it is both together that will help this country get rid of the most dangerous regime we have seen in the history of Syria.
Josh, your view on that?
But this is not about America. This is not about Russia. This is about Syrians working together. There are about 50 or 60 militias in Syria that are all working independently from each other. Washington just tried to get the Kurds to join the SNC. This is failing. Some Kurdish leaders are saying, oh, we want the government to collapse and Kurdistan will separate. The minorities are clinging to the regime. There is an inability to bring together all the Syrians. The upper-class Syrians distrust the lower-class Syrians, and that's why the center cities haven't really come out. Perhaps the Aleppo demonstrations suggest we're moving in that direction. But this is really a fight to unify Syria, it seems to me, and we're seeing greater and greater unity. But still, there's tons of fragmentation. We look at Lebanon, we look at Iraq, we look at Palestine. None of the neighboring countries have overcome these divisions. And, you know, Syria has to face them too. And the hope is that it will find a way to create this national community that has been lacking and that has allowed the Assad regime to rule with an iron fist. But if it doesn't, then you're going to get an Iraq. And that's the challenge, it seems to me.
Kamal in Cairo, can I ask you, do you believe there is the right man or woman out there to lead the opposition?
I think nobody asked anybody to represent the people of Syria. Only one way. We need elections to represent the people of Syria. Nobody asked anybody to do that. I think we create this revolution to give the people of Syria the freedom to elect who represent him. This is the problem. They try to select somebody and ask us to give him the position, and this is the problem. They forget the people, forget the way of select who is represent him, and they try to intervene in the issue inside Syria. Inside Syria, there is revolution. The revolution need who lead it to the freedom. The freedom will give us the chance to make free elections. Now,
Kamal, though,
everybody.
Kamal, one moment. In the period before elections, though, there is clearly a problem on the ground in the opposition of coordination. Do you not need strong leadership? And who's the person to lead?
We need leaders to the revolution, not who represent the people. The council who represents the people must come through the elections only. Nobody can select who is represent us. Nobody. That's why this is the big mistake and commit from the first. Is if you speak about who represents the people, everybody represent himself now. There is a direct democracy. Everybody in the street announce himself and represent himself. In Syria, no parties, because the dictatorship forbidden any kind of parties. In Syria, there is a people and there is a direct democracy. Now, if you speak about who represents them, ask them, let them select, let them elect. If you cannot send somebody to represent me and represent my people. We need council for leading. We need council represent the state. The state, not the people. The state represents the state in the international society. This is the problem. You have a very big council, and it is not efficient, it is not sufficient, and it lack of representation, and some groups that don't participate the revolution, refuse to come inside the SNC and still against them, and this is problem. You make this a problem because you start from the wrong point. This is the problem.
OK, I want to get Bassma's view on that. Who do you think should be the new leader of the SNC? And are you sure that Dr. Galioun is over? Is it possible he might be persuaded to stay on, even though he's tendered his resignation?
I think there are political considerations that make it a real decision on his part, and his resignation is a serious one, I think, here. What we are looking to see emerge in the Council, and has not been the case so far, is this is a coalition. It's difficult to work with different groups that don't agree ideologically, that don't agree on everything. It is not an easy and natural process. So I think the SNC has this unique characteristic, which is that it brings these groups together. Other opposition groups are not the kind of coalition that is significantly representative of trends on the ground. And I'm not saying the people sitting there represent the people. I think I have already stated that it is about efficiency and what we can bring to this revolution. We don't bring enough, then we have to consider that, and not whether we can be more representative in the current conditions. I would see today, and that's my hope, a leader who would emerge as a person who can come with a project, come with a team, come with a vision for what we need to do in the coming weeks and months. And that is, I think, the main message that needs to come out from any candidate. And that will be examined in the coming days. There are options. The council is not short of options. There are very good people there inside the bureau, inside the secretariat, inside the larger body. There are enough people there to select somebody who has credibility and is capable of taking the SNC towards implementing a real project, in the sense that we need today skilled people who are able to operate together, function together, and connect again in a much more effective way to the movements on the ground. We speak to them individually. I personally have been advocating a much stronger representation. They are the reason why we exist, and their representation is not just one among seven. They are the center of the whole operation and the reason and the legitimacy of the SNC. And therefore, I think their representation should be increased, whatever happens in the coming days.
OK, Kamal, can I ask you about Burhan Galyon's resignation? Do you think he means to resign, or do you think it's a ploy so he can be asked to stay on?
I think he is not loyal. I think he put his resignation on the table, but he didn't resign, and he grabbed the position and tried to keep it for himself for a long time, and refused to make elections. Only he accepted that to renew three times, and he failed to do anything. I heard about a culture of suicide, not to resign. I asked him to suicide. Yeah.
Josh Landis, can I ask you about this role as leader of the Syrian National Council? How important is that figurehead at the top, both for the international community and inside Syria?
Well, it's important. It's important to galvanize these disparate groups. And what's happening now is that the international community is beginning to sidestep the SNC. We already have reports that the United States intelligence is making contact with militias and various leaders on the streets in Syria directly. The Muslim Brotherhood just the other day said that they're getting donations and money directly from Saudi Arabia and people in the Gulf, and they're beginning to get weapons directly to their people inside. You know, at the Friends of Syria meeting in Istanbul a little over a month ago, Hillary Clinton's great achievement was that she got the Saudis and others to promise that all aid would go through the SNC because it's more secular and it's got close relations with the United States. But what we're seeing is that aid is now bypassing the SNC. The SNC is becoming less and less important in this as they squabble with each other, and that others are beginning to find their own contacts. The Arab League didn't meet with the SNC most recently. The SNC refused because the Arab League insisted on meeting with other opposition groups, and the SNC got its nose out of joint and decided it wouldn't meet. So that fell apart. But what we're seeing then is the outside powers beginning to look for new leadership on the streets in Syria. And that has to be a scary prospect for the SNC.
While there's been this infighting within the SNC, we've seen important developments on the ground, particularly in Aleppo. No independent journalists there, but some reports are saying as many as 10,000, 15,000 people on the streets led by the university students. If you could tell us finally, Bassma, do you think this is a turning point?
Crucial. Aleppo is a city with a strong component of minorities, particularly Christians. Aleppo is a city with a major bourgeoisie that has huge interests and was tied, and it remains for some part, tied to the regime. For Aleppo to rise, I think is a very, very significant move. And we cannot today diminish the importance of what is happening in Aleppo.
Bassma, thank you so much. Thank you to all our guests, Bassma Kodmani in Paris, Dr. Kamal al-Labwani in Cairo, and Josh Landis in Oklahoma. And I want to thank you for watching on the Around the Clock. Al Jazeera's coverage of the situation in Syria continues. We also have background and analysis on our website, aljazeera.com. And there too, you can watch this programme again if you want. That's it from me and the team. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.